I'm going to do a little tie-in this month between my Diving for Pearls blog and these Killing Whiskey History videos. For the entire month of February, I'm going to be exploring on Diving for Pearls the entry-level whiskey of Glenfiddich's single malt range from the past 40 years. Sometimes it was called Special Reserve, sometimes a Special Old Reserve, sometimes it was called a pure malt, a straight malt, a single malt. It had no age statement, it had 8-year-old, 10-year-old, and 12-year-old age statements. I'm starting this off with today's video, wherein I'm going to be comparing an early 1990s non-age statement Special Reserve with the current edition of the Glenfiddich 12-year-old. Historically, most distilleries are founded and funded by people of considerable means. Now, William Grant was not one of those sort of people. He was the distillery manager at Mortlach Distillery until he decided to try his hand at a little bit of entrepreneurship. Because he wasn't incredibly wealthy, he actually helped build the physical structure of Glenfiddich Distillery. He got a nice break in 1886 when Cardew Distillery elected to sell off its used equipment. So he was able to get stills, watermill, mash tuns, and worm tubs on the cheap. The first successful still run happened on Christmas Day in 1887. William Grant continued to run the distillery until 1903. He had a stroke, and the family formed a limited liability company which would become known as William Grant and Sons. For more than 6 decades, their best known product was Stand Fast blended whiskey. In 1963, due to what may have been a grain whiskey supply shortage, the great-grandsons of William Grant decided to try out an untapped marketplace, the single malt marketplace. They created an 8-year-old pure malt, which they actively marketed in Europe and the United States. In 1964, they were selling 4,000 cases per year. By 1974, they were selling over 120,000 cases per year. Because they got such a head start in this industry, they have been the #1 selling single malt in the world for 54 of the last 55 years. Now on Monday, on Diving for Pearls, I'm going to continue this little history lesson. Here are the 2 whiskeys I'm tasting today. First, let's look at the Glenfiddich Special Reserve without an age statement. Here's the bottle and its tube. Taking a closer look, one notices a number of curious differences between the design on the tube and the design on the bottle. The tube has the older name Pure Malt in the center, while the bottle shows Single Malt. The tube also has the term Single Malt above as well. Special Reserve and Product of Scotland are on both the tube and the bottle, but in completely different places. It appears to be a point in time when the range was shifting names and designs, and the tubes and the bottles were caught in the middle. It doesn't really mean anything in the long term, it's just a curiosity. The Special Reserve measures its liquid volume in milliliters, it measures its alcohol in percentage rather than proof, and it has a UPC code and a government warning on the back. This means the bottle is from 1990 or later. By 1998, Glenfiddich Special Reserve had a 12-year-old age statement worldwide, so this bottle is from before 1998. I have a bottle of 12-year-old Special Reserve from the mid to late 90s, and it has a different design on the bottle and the tube. This makes me think this bottle is from before the mid-90s, and since it's after 1990, I'm going to say this is from the early 1990s. This other bottle is the current version of Glenfiddich 12-year-old. The bottle design has changed considerably. The age statement has a prominent place on both the tube and on the bottle. The label puts single malt right under Glenfiddich. Rather than calling it Special Reserve, they call it our signature malt. And now the label uses a more stylized depiction of Glenfiddich's stag emblem. This is an early 1990s non-age statement Glenfiddich Special Reserve. A screw top. The current version of Glenfiddich 12-year-old. A cork. Bread and apples. some gentle dried fruit notes, citronella candles. It's very waxy, like hot melted candles. Maybe a little bit of orange peel. The apple note gets bigger with time. That hot melted candle note just keeps growing and growing. It's very lovely. Getting a lot of pears and cinnamon and eau de vie. In fact, this is really similar to pear eau de vie. It has a slight floral note. There are some wort notes, like yeast and grains, but it smells really, really young. It smells like Kirschwasser. Cheers. Wow, it is really malty. Malt, brown sugar, and cinnamon. It's got a good level of sweetness to it too. There's a little bit of vanilla in here, but not a lot. I'm getting some tart lemon notes floating around now, but it's very drinkable. The finish is surprisingly long and focuses on that rich malty flavor with a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of tart fruit. Cilantro. This is a little edgier. It's a little sharper, a little rawer. They must be using some overused casks. It definitely has that unaged brandy note in there, like it is some sort of barley eau de vie. And frankly, that's the best part of it, because you're not really getting fruit. You're not getting anything interesting from the casks. There is a slight woody bitterness to it, and I'd say a hint of soap. This does get some more caramel and vanilla and sweetness with time, which actually lifts it up a little bit. But I have to say that I'm very thankful I have a larger bottle of this than of this. This is very approachable. It's very drinkable. It smells great. In fact, there's a real complexity to this nose that totally surprised me. This version of Glenfiddich 12 feels more raw, incomplete, half-baked than previous versions of Glenfiddich that I've enjoyed so much. These both would be very good on ice. It would sweeten it up a little bit. It would be very, very drinkable. In fact, these remind me of how I got my start with single malts more than 20 years ago. Enjoying Glenfiddich on the rocks a little more than I should have.
Papa.
Sounds like my time is up.